Happy early birthday, Mr. Stiles. Thank you, Kenneth. I appreciate that. Once again, and that is a perfect segue. I'm going to act like I did that on purpose because Brenden Nunes, who joins us right now, 916-339-1140 if you want to be part of the conversation. Brenden Nunes joins us, and he will be filling in for me tomorrow as I will be in San Diego enjoying. So I looked it up. It's barely getting the 70s. I don't know what's going on here, but I'm going to take it. I do know that next week it'll be pretty warm in Sacramento. We're going to hit the 70s and maybe get to the 80s. So, Brenden, want to thank you again, my guy, for filling in, and thank you for joining us on a beautiful Thursday, even though it's my Friday. What's up, Brenden?
What's up, man? I'm doing all right. Sorry I'm not there at Tom's with you, but
Chris is here because Chris is a good teammate. And you're an okay teammate because at least you're here on the phone.
There's tiers of teammates, right? Because I know. Are you getting Frank on?
Frank is on next, but Frank has an excuse with the baby.
Okay.
So Frank.
Well, I'd like to say now. Frank and I are same tier.
That's your call. That's your call. Well, Brenden, it was a good call last night for the Kings to get this W, a much needed W, against one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NBA, the number one seed in the East, the Cleveland Cavaliers. We were talking to Chris Watkins and just breaking down if it changed your thought process at all. Chris said it changed his thought about the floor, but not necessarily the ceiling. As I've kind of said, it did excite me because I don't know how often they can get to that level, but at least I know that they have that level in the mix. How did you feel watching the game last night?
Yeah, I like your assessment. I think that, it's good to be reminded every once in a while, I think for the fan base, but also just for the team themselves, sort of internal confidence that like, hey, when we piece this all together, we can be pretty damn good. Yeah, sure, Cleveland was on a back-to-back, but like Chris pointed out, I mean, anytime a team was 56-12, man, like it's their 13th loss of the season. So that can never be overlooked. I don't care about Darius Garland not being out there. There's no Zach LaVine. There's no Domantas Sabonis. So it goes both ways. I mean, I think that for sure it's good to be reminded of, that you can piece it all together and be pretty productive. And sure, the shooting 45% from three definitely helps a lot. But funnily enough, even though the Cavs were 55% from the field, I thought the Kings played pretty good defense, like for stretches. Instances of getting turnovers, of being physical. I thought they were really, really on point of like getting on the floor quickly for 50-50 balls. And I think that sort of effort and physicality was what really popped for me yesterday. And Devin Carter was a big part of that.
Talking to Brenden Nunes, one of our Sactown Sports Kings insiders. Brenden, what is a hidden storyline from last night? And you can go with Devin Carter, of course, but I don't know how hidden it is. It was clearly his coming out party in the NBA. And I don't know what it is with Devin Carter. Maybe it's because he's from the East Coast, but bring me your best Eastern Conference team, and I will have a really, really good game. As we remember, in the game where a lot of people are saying that's the only game they would take over this game last night as far as the best game of the season, a game when they beat the brakes off of Boston in Boston. What would you say was maybe a storyline from last night that wasn't covered as heavily as some of the others?
Yeah, I would say maybe that defensive effort is what stood out to me. Again, Cleveland shooting 55% from the field doesn't bode the greatest for that argument, but I really think that the hustle for 50-50 balls, I mean, again, Devin Carter definitely part of that, him getting more run, but it's when you have multiple good defenders on the floor is where I think that you're really seeing it. Multiple, not just good defenders, but guys that are just all-out hustle guys, if you just want to go, cliche like dogs out there. Devin Carter absolutely fits that. I think Keegan Murray is, maybe a soft-spoken dog, but I think he's out there absolutely competing and getting, sort of gritty with his play, especially recently, as I think he's been more physical. Keon for sure falls into that. Jake LaRavia, who wasn't out there last night either, I think definitely falls into that. Trey Lyles, a different sort of breed, I guess you would say, but falls into that. And maybe he can be like the quieter storyline. I feel like these last 2-3 games, he's played upwards of 20 minutes, 22 minutes against Golden State, 20 minutes against Memphis, and he closed that game out instead of Jonas Valanciunas, 30 minutes against Cleveland, and also played, a larger role than Valanciunas did. So getting some success from that small ball unit that we've seen for years before, I think has been big these last two games.
And then do you think there is a conversation to be had where some of these dog lineups that we're talking about in Memphis, where it was Devin Carter, Keon Ellis, Jake LaRavia, very clearly, who else was it? Trey Lyles and DeMar DeRozan, which means that Malik Monk and Zach LaVine are on the bench. Last night, no Zach LaVine, right? And I'm sure you heard the conversations that I've had with Chris and just earlier on the show, just about, hey, deep down, does Doug think, hey, at least everyone is going to have a better role, even if we're less talented? How do they find that balance? And do you think there's a conversation to be had where it's, hey, guys, as Jake LaRavia says, it's a butter situation. Okay, there's only 5 seconds left on the shot clock of the season. We can't really mess around here, and we have to ride hot hands, whatever that hot hand may be.
I think that the starting lineup situation, and it's a roster construction thing in general in my mind. I think that you do need to play your most talented players. Like, everybody's going to point to Keon. I think Keon's great. I've liked Keon a lot ever since he was undrafted, but he does still have like some offensive limitations, and Malik is obviously more talented. And in that starting group, it's like, ideally you want DeMar and Zach to be able to focus on scoring. So you put Malik Monk in there to, I guess, facilitate and help set guys up, something that he's learning to do. But at the same time, like, part of Malik's skill set is being able to go get a bucket, which is why I think he's, pretty well suited for that 6-man role. It's just a hard, I think, formula on this team to try to figure out. And I think that it's something that you probably need to figure out that balance with one of these upper echelon players when it comes to the talent on your team this offseason, and make some adjustments there when it comes to that. But I think this year's starting lineup, I do think that you need Malik Monk's playmaking out there to make life easier for Zach LaVine, for DeMar DeRozan a little bit as well. But specifically, Zach, I think, plays best when he's set up by other guys. And that's why I think that Malik does make sense in that starting lineup, even if there's other questions around it.
Brenden Nunes, thanks so much for joining. One more before we get you out of here. Are you worried at all about the Kings doing the Kings thing tonight against the Bulls, or do you think Doug will have the dogs ready?
No, absolutely. Allen, aren't we all worried that they're going to go full Kings tonight? It's just, I don't know. That doesn't even really have to do with their recent play. They played really well against Memphis and Cleveland, but then sure, you can go back to the 4 losses prior. I think that they've been playing solid. They just are a super up and down team that could be great offensively or horrible defensively, and they're super inconsistent. And it'd be very, very Kings. So, yeah, you even called it the Kings thing. How can I not be worried?
Yeah, well, let's hope they don't go full Kings. Never go full Kings. Brenden Nunes, thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to follow Brenden. A lot of great stuff he puts out on social media, on Twitter, and, of course, he's always writing for us. You can check that out, SactownSports.com. Brenden, we will talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us, man. And thanks for tomorrow.
Yep, appreciate you. See you tonight.
All right, man. Peace. On the other side, we will keep this whole thing going. So basically it's a round table, but I'm calling it a bit of a waterfall. So we're cascading through our normal round table, and we had Chris Watkins, Brenden Nunes, and next we will have the one, the only, Frankie Cardicelli, Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.
We bring the boom. That's what we do.
On the move, got somewhere to be.